There's such awesome things in the chat here, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. We don't want to wait too long. We want to get started and respect your time. So we will absolutely get started now, and keep them coming in. If you can think of any other way, if you're in the middle of typing something, go ahead, finish it. All right, so we'll get started. Welcome to our the CodeHS Hour of Code, and this is such a cool one. This Hour of Code focuses on coding for a litter-free community. So basically, we're going to go through a bunch of things today that's going to show you how computer science can be used for these purposes. So we'll explore how computer science can be used to solve one of the biggest issues is the waste and the litter, whether it be on the streets or in the ocean. It's something that we definitely have to address. And computer science gives us kind of a route to do that. So first off, let's introduce ourselves. I am Jennifer Campbell. I'm a curriculum developer here at CodeHS. I was a math teacher beforehand, and then I don't know, made the switch, jumped over to computer science. As soon as I found out what it was, I fell in love with it. So I just continued on that path. And then we also have Rachel. Rachel, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, I'm Rachel Devaney. I'm another curriculum developer here at CodeHS. I've taught middle school and high school English, math, and made the jump to computer science just like Jennifer over here. So excited to be here with y'all today.
Yeah, I think one of my first experiences with computer science was the Hour of Code. Like I worked on it, I did it, and I was like, I want to keep doing this. This is so much fun. So for students in here, hopefully, that's our goal today. And we have an awesome, well, not surprise, but an awesome addition, I guess. We have Elena Guberman in here as well. And Elena is the creator of the app Rubbish. She's one of the creators of the app Rubbish. So Rubbish is an app that maps litter and uses the data to develop solutions for making communities cleaner. Elena, if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into this computer science field?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to talk to you all today. My journey was a little bit of a windy road. I actually spent a lot of my career making different types of food and beverage products. So I worked in operations and helped things like snacks, like chips, or beverages that come in a can. And in that industry, a lot of the focus is to make a product as delicious as possible, but inevitably it has to be in a package of some kind. So frequently we would do either cleanups or even I would like find bags that I've made laying around. So it's always been like something that's personally affected me. And I grew up in like a fairly clean neighborhood in Brooklyn, but over the years, I think it's gotten a little dirtier. And especially if I go somewhere really like a park or I hike upstate New York, and then I would come back to the city, I would acknowledge how much more litter there was. So a couple of years ago, a friend and I were walking my dog around our block, and my dog choked on a chicken bone. And he was fine. He was super happy to have stolen that delicious chicken bone, but I was so upset. And instead of getting upset at who threw the chicken bone there, we started looking at litter as we continued on our walk and really found that like if you really pay attention, there's a little bit of a pattern to litter. So if we got closer to a park, maybe we saw more pizza boxes, more wrappers, like for big size chip bags because people were congregating in bigger groups and having picnics. And then maybe if you walk down sidewalks, you'll see more cigarette butts or things like plastic bags. So really we started at first trying to figure out whether we were crazy. We were like, maybe there isn't a pattern. So we started picking up litter and writing down everything we found, like one paper bag, one solo cup. And we did that on a couple of blocks. And then that was very annoying to do. We didn't want to use pen and paper. We know that there are better tools out there. And my friend happens to be a developer. So we put together an app that allows you to take a picture, it grabs the GPS point, and it helps you create this map of what is happening on your block. And using those maps is really a better way to help us place garbage cans exactly where they're needed, because you can look at a map and see a heat map of like where there is more trash, as opposed to just putting one on a corner. So over the years, it's kind of developed. We've added a lot more functionality. We released custom categories last year on top of the 6 categories that already existed. We released things like being able to share your run, your rubbish run, as we call them, with your friends through Rubbish. And we're working on a whole bunch more for next year that will let you not only clean up litter in a more fun way, but also make it kind of an enjoyable experience through technology, which we think is great. And then this picture that Claire and the CodeHS team have up is actually us with our hardware product. So we got so tired of picking up litter and bending over that we took a normal kind of litter picker-upper and just thought outside the box a little bit and decided to mount our phone onto it so that every time you actually press the trigger to grab something without needing to bend over, it takes that picture for you. And using Bluetooth, we can get that picture in the Rubbish app, collect that data point, and move on without having to bend down. So that's the little gadget you see in the picture. And we're still building out the app and the gadget. It's always a work in progress, as you guys will find out with coding. You always have to kind of keep thinking. It's frustrating sometimes, but you just got to power through it. And eventually there will be at least a temporary solution that works, and you'll probably change it again, but that's the way it works.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much just for working on this goal. I actually had a similar experience, except it wasn't my dog that found a chicken bone. It was my 3-year-old.
Oh.
And he started like eating it and I almost threw up and I was like, oh, this is gross. We wanted to give some time here, I guess, for the students in the room. If you guys have any questions, it is the perfect time to ask someone. Especially, we love having that we have Elena here because it might not have been her first choice to go into computer science, but somehow she found herself there. So if you're in that position right now where you don't even know if that's in your future, you may find yourself there. So please post some questions in either the chat or the Q&A, and we'll pass them on to Elena. And we've got a few minutes to do that. So I'll give you a minute or two to type any. And if we don't get any, I've got some here too. As they're typing, as they're thinking, Elena, if you don't mind, I've got a question for you. Basically, what's your favorite thing about computer science, the computer science field?
I think my favorite thing, and this is someone who comes from making physical products, I think my favorite thing is the ability to change things really quickly. So if something doesn't work, you can recode it and have a completely different solution, which is incredible to me because my background, I'm used to like physical inventory. So when you make a snack, you usually have hundreds of thousands of it. And until someone buys it, you're kind of stuck with that snack. But in computer science, you can really change and make it more who the audience is. So if we find that people are asking us for a particular feature, or people are having problems using it in a certain way, we can just go in and change it and then ask our audience again, like ask the community, how does this feel? Is it better? And we're getting better and better at kind of building in public, like what do people want to use? That's become really important to us. It's my favorite thing.
Great, thank you. We did get a question in here. Morgan would like to know where the app is set up for. Would it work in Canada?
Yeah, so right now the app is available on the App Store. It's free and it's available nationwide. So we have a lot of users in Canada and then in other countries that really focus on sustainability. So we have a good amount of users in like Scandinavia, in Scotland, in England, who do cleanups around their neighborhood, but also want like the progress reports for it and want to have those maps.
Awesome. We've got another question. How accurate is the app?
That's a great question, and one that strikes a chord for sure. So the app is accurate. It's accurate enough to help you make those maps. And if you download the app, you'll see that you can make a map and have what we call a snail trail. So a trail of how much litter you've picked up on your route. And it'll change from green to red depending on how clean or dirty the neighborhood is. The interesting thing about this question is that we frequently done audits for cities. So for example, if I live here in the Bay Area, I'm in Oakland. So if a city group is starting to organize new services in a different part of the neighborhood, before they launch those services like pressure washing or additional cleaning, they want to know like what's the baseline? What is the baseline level of dirtiness or cleanliness of this neighborhood? And if we do those audits, we have to be pretty accurate, right? So for me and you, maybe it'll be fine to have like a general outline of our area. But for those neighborhood groups, it's really important to know what side of the street you're on. And for granularity like that, we've done a couple of things. So we've experimented with having attachments to our phone that have like a better signal and can get us a better point. We've experimented with in the app, like putting in a box and having you like narrow in on exactly where you are, kind of like on Google Maps, if you like zoom in several times. The problem with that approach, so the approach of like adding a little gadget to your phone is great. It is much more accurate. What we found is it's hard to distribute that gadget to everyone using the app because people just don't have that additional gadget. As far as like the zooming in feature, we found that folks just don't want to do it, right? Like I just want to take a picture and move on my day, and I want to contribute to the larger data set, but I might not want to like do the triple zoom. So really that didn't work just because of the people part of it. All of this that you're building or that we're building is really for people. It's not started out as something for us, to be honest, but now we realize that more people want it. So keeping that in mind is really important. So the zoomy feature, it just didn't work because people don't want to zoom in. So that's something that we're considering. How do we make it really easy for folks? So right now we're talking about adding in another layer of architecture to identify what side of the street you're on. So if you're in our app, you could click one button to tell us whether you're on the right or left side of the street. And that I think for people will be easier. That's the feedback we've gotten. So that's our new approach, but that's definitely a good question because it like strikes a chord. It's not an easy one to solve. And maybe over the years as internet and bandwidth and technology grows, like it'll become easier. But for now that we have a couple of approaches we're taking.
Yeah, I feel like with data, anything that has data and people involved, like that could totally be a challenge. Like you said, like your favorite part is being able to change things, but what should you change is probably a really big challenge.
Totally.
The questions have slowed down, but I do want to get this one in here that I think is important. Do you have any advice? What advice do you have for students, both, you know, students that are pursuing and then students who are not pursuing a computer science pathway?
So I think that everyone should continue to ask questions. Just keep wondering how we can improve everything. It can be, how can we cook something more delicious? Or how can we clean up streets more effectively? Because I think that if you're starting to code, you're already probably building in that kind of logic in your mind of questioning things differently and being able to use different information to try to solve problems. If you're not pursuing code, I still think that, and I'm not a coder, I do not code. I have dabbled in it, but I cannot say that I am a coder. But I think that in communicating to our developing team, I'm able to explain the logic of what we need. I'm able to explain like, hey, like I need like this thing to happen. I'm not sure how we get there. We can talk through it. We can brainstorm it. Maybe I can contribute from like the consumer side. Maybe I can help you understand what folks would or wouldn't do. But I still can't get us there. So I'm relying on like the coder community and our developers to really execute on a vision. So I think whether you're coding or not, the most important thing is like, don't get discouraged, continue asking questions and continue thinking about things in a way that maybe is not done right now. Like the way things are done right now are just how they're done right now. That might change as the years go on or as the months go on. So I guess I would encourage everyone to just continue being curious.
Excellent. That is awesome. Awesome advice. And we're going to get into some of that logic today in the Hour of Code. So I'm so excited. Students in the room, like whether you're going to go through computer science or not, like Elena said, the logic we're going to work on today is going to be beneficial no matter where you go. Elena, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being our guest speaker. You know, feel free to hang out for the rest of the Hour of Code or not. And I'm going to switch it over to Rachel and she's going to take over from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And again, thank you so much, Elena. Such great advice. And it's just so interesting to hear your experience building Rubbish and continuing to improve Rubbish. So thank you so much for joining us. And so let's go ahead and transition to talking about coding now. So another really great, Rubbish is a great example. Another really great example that I just want to quickly share with y'all of how we can use computer science and programming to decrease the litter in our community is the waste shark. So this is a really great, it's a water drone that moves around the water and collects litter, and you can control it. So it has 2 different options. You can use a remote control to control it, or you can program it to be on autopilot where it goes around on its own. This will kind of come back to this, but another really great example of how we can use programming in our world today to continue improving and making the world a better place. So today we are going to be learning the basics of Python, which is super exciting. I'm going to start off by giving a quick introduction and some basic things. You don't need to be logged into CodeHS or on a specific activity just yet. We will give you directions on when and how to do all of those things. But for right now, just follow along with me and let's get started. So programming or coding is giving commands to a computer. At its most basic, simplest form, you're just giving commands to a computer, which is really just like giving commands to a dog. And this is Carol. Carol is who we're going to be working with today, so you will get to know her very well. Carol speaks Python. And Python is great because it's a really good programming language for beginners, and it's super popular in the tech industry. So companies that you are, may or may not be familiar with, like Instagram or YouTube or Google, and even us here at CodeHS, we use Python. And so you are going to be learning a language that is used across the board, which is super exciting. So let's get to know Carol a little bit better. So this is Carol's world. She lives in this really snazzy grid world that is surrounded by edges, and it has little dots, and each dot is a place where Carol can stand. So unfortunately, just like our world, there's a lot of litter in Carol's world right now, and it's making it really hard for Carol to survive. However, you will need to use your imagination a little bit in today's hour of code because the litter looks like yellow tennis balls. So how can we use coding to help Carol clean up her community? And we can do this just like the waste shark. So we can give the waste shark commands to clean up litter in the water. And so we're going to give Carol commands to help her clean up the yellow tennis balls or pieces of trash in her community. And we can do this by giving Carol commands. And these are the commands that Carol knows. She knows how to move, turn left, turn right, turn around, and take a ball. So the move command moves Carol 1 space forward. The turn left command will turn her 90 degrees to the left. The turn right command will turn her 90 degrees to the right. The turn around command will have her turn all the way around 180 degrees. Carol will be upside down sometimes, and that's fine. She is totally cool with that. And then if there is a piece of trash where Carol is standing or a yellow tennis ball, you can use the take ball command, and that will pick up that piece of trash. So it turns out that giving commands to a computer or Carol is computers and Carol are very picky, right? We have to give the command in a very specific way. So let's take a look at the turn left command to make sure we understand all of the very basics here. So first of all, there are no spaces. There's no capital letters. So both the T and the L are lowercase. There's an underscore between the words. So basically, instead of spaces, we use underscores when giving commands. You can find the underscore by doing the shift and then the button up by the 0 if you're unsure where that is. And then also, every command ends in a parentheses. And so if we don't give the command exactly this way, Carol's not going to understand it. It might take you a little bit of time to get used to this, but that's because you're learning a new language, which is super exciting. And so as you practice today, you'll get the hang of it and it'll start to be more natural. So take a deep breath and work slowly and you'll get it. It's going to be great. So throughout the hour of code today, you're going to learn a couple of important programming concepts. So the basic command structures, which we just went over, and then for loops and if statements. We may not get to all 3 of those, and that's totally fine. You'll still have access to this hour of code throughout whenever you want to come back to it. But throughout this, you're going to learn these concepts and apply them to complete cleanup challenges. So continuing to help Carol clean up her community, and they will get more challenging as you go. So be prepared to use your problem-solving skills. All right, so those are the basics. We've learned the basic structures. And so now let's go ahead and go into the code editor to see what this is going to look like in Carol's world. Now, you don't need to do anything yet. You're just following along with me, and we will then we will give you directions on how to do this. Okay, so here we are in the code editor. And so I'm going to give you a quick tour just so you know kind of what's going on here. So here, if we go over here to the exercise tab, this is going to show you exactly what your instructions are. So let's go ahead and read this together. Write a program to have Carol pick up her first piece of trash. Direct Carol to move to the tennis ball, pick it up, and then move 1 more time. Cool, easy enough. So here we can see our ending world. And now I'm going to point you to a couple of things on the left side of our screen that are really helpful. So here you can also see the results world. So this is what our world should look like when we've finished our program successfully. We also have these quick docs here that in case you forget what the commands that Carol knows are, or if you forget what they look like or how to do them, they're right here. So you don't need to memorize them. Okay, now you're probably wondering, how do we code? Well, we do this here. So this is where we write our code. So let's go ahead and give Carol the first move command because we need her to move to the tennis ball. So I've written the command here, and in order to get Carol to actually do that command, I'm going to click run. Great, so Carol moved one time. We do have this oops statement here, but don't freak out about that. That's just telling us that we're not done with our program. So that's totally okay. So I'm going to reset my program and let's continue writing. So she's moved once, let's move her two more times. Move one more time, move one more time. Cool, reset. And you can use this bar here to make it move a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, awesome. So Carol is to the tennis ball. We now need to get her to pick that tennis ball up. So I'm going to use the take ball command. Here we go. Yep, got to reset, here we go. Okay, great. I give her the take ball command. We have one more thing that we need to do to get her where she needs to be. Move one more time. And great, then nice job. So we've written our first Carol program. We've picked up our first piece of trash, which is super exciting. And so now you know the basics, and it's going to be your turn to begin your hour of code coding challenge. So I'm going to go back here and let's quickly give you a second. So give you directions. So now it is your turn to get started. And so now we're going to navigate you to the place where you can go to get started. So we are posting a link in the chat and you are going to start there. If you have a CodeHS account, go ahead and get logged in. This will enable you to save your progress as you go. If you don't have a CodeHS account, you won't be able to save your code. You'll be able to work through it, but it won't be there when you come back. So you'll go to the link in the chat, and then that will immediately take you to your first cleanup challenge called, creatively, Cleanup Challenge Level 1. Let's see. All right. So if you go to that link, it should take you, and I'll show you exactly what you should be seeing. You should be seeing something that looks like this. And so for the rest of this time, I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to get here. And I'll give just a couple more instructions. Okay. So as you're getting logged in, or once you get logged in, your goal right now is to code. Like that is what you're doing. So I'm going to stop talking and give you the opportunity to actually get started. If you have questions, that's great. There are two options for asking questions, whatever you feel comfortable doing. So you can ask questions in the Q&A on Zoom. You can also, if you'd rather like virtually chat with your teacher, you can ask them privately to your teacher in Zoom. And then also, if you're logged into a CodeHS account, if you have a question on a specific activity, I encourage you to share that link because that makes it really easy for us to see your code and answer any questions that you have. So once you finish cleanup challenge number 1, you are more than welcome to keep going to learn about if statements and for loops. And we are here to answer your questions. So get coding and we'll come back together like 10 or 5 minutes before the end. I just wanted to quickly give everyone a heads up that we have about 10 minutes left. And you still have 10 minutes, a couple more minutes to code. But if anyone wants to share or showcase the program that they have been working on, if you're logged into a CodeHS, you're welcome to copy and paste your link, the URL, into the chat, and we'll showcase it for everyone if you are comfortable or want to do that. Otherwise, keep coding, and we'll come back together in a couple of minutes to finalize and close out. All right, I hope you had a lot of fun learning Python and teaching Carol commands to help clean up her community. If you're wondering what's next, if you didn't quite finish, that's totally fine. You can keep working through it. All you have to do is come back to this link. If you have a CodeHS account, all of your work will be saved. If you don't have a CodeHS account, your work won't be saved. However, you will be able to just pick up where you left off and keep going. Also, you may have noticed that there's a bunch of activities after the Python activities. There is a web design pathway if you're interested in learning about HTML and how to build a website. That comes next after the cleaning up with Python with Carol. So there's also some really great Hour of Codes coming up if you are interested in participating in any of the other ones that we're leading here. But I hope you had a really great time learning how to code, keep coding, and have a great rest of your day. And thank you for joining us here at CodeHS.